Okay, we're live. I'm Dr. John Celestri, and oh yes, why? How do you become a doctor? Who am I? I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm Dr. John, and well, how am I a doctor? Well, I earned my doctorate of animation through my 45 plus years of professional old school animation and comic book experience. I've worked on a lot of stuff. But instead of me telling you what I did, let's go take a look at the our show opening. Okay, so here we are. Today we're going to. I've got a great guest, and I really, really like the gal. It's Daphne Lage, and here she is. Come on, there you go.
Ta-da! Hello.
Yes,
I guess let me tell the peoples who I am.
yes.
Hello, my name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, so I'll let you guys all do the math because I'm bad at it. But I think when it comes to comics, I know what I'm talking about. And I am known for my funny animal fantasy comic, Tall Tales. Right here. This
Mhm.
is my first. This is my first series, but I'm currently known for my latest book, being a little redundant there. Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, which is now on Kickstarter and was just recently chosen as a project we love by Kickstarter. Yes, thank you. Right. And you can check me out on at my link right here, eagleworks.com. And you can also check out both my comics online at my website at talltales, T-A-I-L-S online.com, and at eagleworks.com, EGOWRKS. And also, if you're joining us on from Facebook or Twitter or for wherever else you're seeing us, you can also check out my channel, Daphne Lage, Lage Art, where I have videos on how I do my comics and all sorts of other things too. So there you go.
Great. Well, I've got your link. Your links are down in the description,
Oh,
along
thank
with
you.
mine for Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. I'm on in demand, so we got all both books. You can get them all there. But I have to say that this show is part of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, and also we have the cards of all the various shows on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, and you could take a screenshot of this, and you can look up some of your favorites there when you at your leisure. So, anyway, we're going to be talking today about fantasy, creating fantasy,
Yeah,
and
my
how,
favorite.
yes, but an element of fantasy should be fantasy
Yeah,
and not literalism.
right. Yeah.
So let's, I mean, I approached you with this idea because I said, let's have two people talk about it and go back and forth, and maybe we agree, maybe we don't agree. I mean, how literal can you be? Or
Right.
what's been your experience besides the fact of what's the genealogy of your furries,
Right.
or what?
Well, right. Yeah, exactly. You see, that's what kind of started it. Um, I was when, like I said, this is my very first book, and I've literally had people ask me, "Is this historically accurate?" And I go, "Bruh, there's talking animals in it? I don't understand the question. And the thing is that it was along with another question that I would get about that series is that, okay, so how did the furries develop? What was the evolutionary, and it's like, bruh, they're talking animals. You either accept the concept or
Right.
you don't. There's no science behind it.
Right.
And I always thought that was like a furry fandom thing. That it's like that for some reason they were kind of obsessed with that concept. It's like, oh, where did the furries come from? And it's like, I made it up. I mean, why do you need, But for like the past like couple of years, I've been noticing on Twitter, it's in literary circles, and it expanded to. I started seeing it in literary circles, and then it expanded to pretty much all of media, including TV and there's this whole argument where there are literally people saying that they cannot get into fantasy unless they know like what the underlying reality is. Like, how do your cities work? What's the economic basis for your world? Where are all the toilets? It's like, and I can understand on a certain level why people would be curious about that. But when it gets to a point where people are saying, if I don't know where the toilets are in your city, I can't can't get into your thing. And it's like, what a strange thing to distract you.
Well, I think now, again, we're now talking about, let's say, a generation. We're talking about, it depends upon what your age group you're
Right.
referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the most some of the most popular online games are world building.
Right, yeah.
And that's the fantasy that they create of their own. And unless they can see what the reality is, what kind of reality, like they're expecting you to spend 10,000, the equivalent of 10,000 years to create something.
A literal civilization.
Start, and those are problems that are really, it's problematic for me that it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
And, if I want to go back to see, if I want to study ancient Rome, or anything like that, that's different. But I mean, Alice in Wonderland, what is the underlying thing that happens there?
Right.
There's a fantasy right there. What I think it's gotten to the point where people, I don't know, maybe this is a North American problem in terms, or maybe it's because we don't have a literary culture where we have myths of gods and goddesses and what have you, as part of our existence.
Well, you see, the funny thing is that I've seen these same people, or at least like the same hive mind of people, actually dismiss, like I grew up on Greek myths. So a lot of the storytelling that I do is based on that. It has the foundation of Greek mythology. I was just catching up on some Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, and the I guess like the cycle of the hero's journey and whatnot. And there are people who are literally saying that, Greek myths are, I hate to use this term because I know it's being used incorrectly because it's an academic term that was completely ripped from context on social media. It's like they're saying, Greek myths are problematic, because, Zeus is raping everybody. And I go, yes, Zeus is raping everybody. I'm not going to deny that. But it's like, that's part of the mythology. That's part of,
That was also part of life back then. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, it's not even. It's like the gods were meant to be reflections of people on a grander scale.
Mhm.
They weren't meant to be like I don't know. It's like the Romans, their gods were just as shitty as the people
Mhm.
that they were supposed to be representing. They all did
Right.
horrible things.
Yeah.
And again, it's about, but instead of like taking these stories as what were the lessons that they were trying to uh, portray in these myths, it's kind of like fairy tales. When you go to the original fairy tales, they're not the Walt Disney versions that
Mhm.
you're seeing. You know, it's
No.
like, and I mean, which was quite a shock for me when I read the original story for Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, really? Oh,
Let's
okay.
just say Beast is not asking Belle to dinner. That's not what breaks the spell. Let's just say that. Um, so the thing is that so they're looking at these stories and they're like, oh, instead of like looking at the stories as a story, they're hyper focusing on the parts that I don't know that make them uncomfortable, I guess, conceptually, and then they want to dismiss the whole thing. It's like,
Well,
oh,
they
we
do.
shouldn't be, you know.
Right. Well, they're taking it from the point of view from a 21st century, a 20th
Right,
century, 21st century
right.
attitude of how what is supposedly,
And
good.
well, and the thing is though, and I don't even think it's that. I think it's like it's even worse. I think it's actually not even attitude as opposed to they're reacting to exaggerated marketing in their favor,
Hmm.
and they think that everything needs to be catered to whatever hangups that they have.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like, because I remember like a couple of years ago when I first started, I was reading this thing about how the hot trends that are coming up is customizable media. And where you can customize clothes, you can
Right.
customize shoes, and it's like, and you can customize media.
Mhm.
And I think what happened is that people are taking that to the extreme, where now it's not about um like they don't even want to use their imaginations anymore,
Mhm.
because they're so used to, like, well, why should I imagine anything when I can just tell them what to make?
Right.
And I want stories that make me feel comfy and cozy, and don't make me feel anything. And so what happens is that then it's like they start nitpicking any story that goes away from that. It's like, oh, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm not asking you to
Yeah.
accept it as realistic. This is a fantasy story. It's people arguing over whether dragons can talk, which which that's not even a modern argument that I saw. This was back decades ago in Pern fandom and McCaffrey, where fans were literally arguing about the realism of dragons talking. And I go, your sentence ended at dragons. There is no arguing the realism of dragons. I mean, there's you can have an entertaining thought exercise if you're thinking about the biology of it,
Mhm.
but that's all it is. If you're a zoologist, like my sister used to have these conversations all the time, because it's like she works in bio research. She's a veterinary anesthesiologist, and
Mhm.
sometimes she'll sit down and she'll think about how mythological creatures would function in the setting that she's familiar with, in a veterinary setting.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing to think about,
Okay.
but it's not supposed to be literal. I mean, in the end, they're still fantasy creatures. So, in the end, if I say that these animals talk, that's it. That's I don't need to think anything more than that.
Well, there's so much in terms of people. I mean, the whole idea of the fantasy stories are metaphors,
Yeah.
basically. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if it's more than just a sand and spear spectacle,
Yeah.
you know, what is, as long as you have a certain, and it's not even just believability, is being reasonable within the rules that you set up. I
Yeah.
mean, again, we are, telling a story is you're
Mm-hmm.
creating a world.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be what you want.
Yeah.
Can you drop into right now the madness of being in war? There are certain different worlds,
Mm-hmm.
realities. You go in and you're trying to, as long as you, as a as an author, as a creator of the environment, you have a consistency
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
which you set up what is allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Then, as long as you are within that realm, then go for the be
Yeah.
entertained.
Yeah.
Why not? Aren't I do not understand why you would want to read a fictional story when you are guaranteed what's going to happen.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that a couple of points there. People are confusing, and I had to keep the word up on my screen over here because I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. They're confusing reality with
Very similar.
verisimilitude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, very similar.
verisimilitude. Yeah,
Yes,
verisimilitude.
yes.
And what it is that they think when they say a fantasy needs to be realistic, they're confusing it with the fantasy has to be realistic to their expectations. When a fantasy actually has to be realistic to the author's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
The author is a fantasy works has no matter how fantastical your story is, there's rules that you set up
Yeah.
in that fantasy. And everything in your story has to coincide with those rules that you made up.
Right.
And it's when and it's when you separate from your own rules, as I think that where's the conflict, and this is not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not realistic to the rules that you set up as the author.
And that's where it becomes the believability of
exactly.
what your
Yeah.
actions are. I mean, it's like basic character
Yeah.
development of
Mm-hmm.
this character suddenly changes the mind. Well,
Right.
how have you set that up?
Yeah,
You always
exactly.
have to set
Mm-hmm.
up cause and effect.
Yes.
And that is one of the things that here's the cause.
Right.
This is the effect. It could
Uh-huh.
be as fantastical as you want.
Yeah.
But as long as you have those basic two elements, then you can start
Right.
things
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
But how far back do you need to go?
Well,
To
right. You see, and that's the thing.
story.
Yeah, and that's something that I struggled with for a while. It's like, how much world building do I need to tell my story? How many rules do I have to actually establish? And one of the things that really blew my mind and really freed me up was the idea that it's okay in your story to say, I don't know.
Okay.
That you don't have to. I thought for the longest time, and I think that this stems back from everyone growing up on Tolkien, where it's like he did so. I mean, he explained everything. If there are elvish toilets, he's explaining how those work. I mean, really. But what I realized is that you don't need to do that. It's like your characters can literally say, I don't know how that works, or it doesn't work that way, and not explain anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found, at least for me, that frees up a lot of brain power. It's like because then it's like I can actually move on with the story. Because what I realized is that just because I'm not explaining something doesn't mean it's necessary or not necessary to the story, the explanation. So I do that a lot of times because it's like, you know what? I don't have to. Do I really have to explain why a god in the mortal realm doesn't have all his powers? It's like, do I really have to go into details with that? Or do I just have to show how limited they are. And all he says, it's like I have in a novella that I'm working on, someone asks, it's like, you're a god, why can't you just make this right? And he goes, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I didn't feel the need to have to explain it. It's like all he said was, my powers are severely limited in the mortal realm. And I'm only here for this particular reason. And that was it. I didn't have to go into all this crazy backstory,
Right.
because I've already established in my story that I don't know is an answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so so it's like, if you establish that, then it should be, and if you establish it enough times in your story,
Mm-hmm.
your reader should start accepting that you don't ask a god why.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I have set. Now, there's a difference between setting up tone
Yeah.
for your world,
Mm-hmm.
where you set the rules
Yeah.
up, versus explaining how every
Right.
minutia works.
Yeah. There is a difference.
You know,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've in Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, I've set up in one page how everything works.
Yeah.
What is the beginning, middle, and what
Yeah.
what the conflicts are,
Yeah.
and you just read them, and that's that. But within that realm, there is so many different things.
Right.
I don't go into, because what's the sense?
Right. Yeah,
What is
exactly.
it? But as long as you have large points where you have a not even a start and stop
Right.
kind of thing, it's kind of like, okay, this is the world, this is where the potential conflicts are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you have that and say, okay, this is the world you're stepping into.
Right.
It's the equivalent of old Billy Batson saying, okay, I say Shazam,
Shazam,
because
yeah.
I have the power of such
Right,
and such
yeah,
and such and
yeah.
such. And that's basically what I did.
Right.
It just said, here's your thing, and you can, this is what happens, and so on
Right.
and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one thing that I will go into, but first I want to just say hello to let's see here, to Frater CR.
Hello.
I just want you to say hi. Yes, and Frater says a story doesn't have to
Right.
be realistic.
Exactly.
It's real. Yes.
Mhm.
Let's see. What is this? Media Ghost. Thoughts on Docker projects that have a fantasy setting? Example, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay. Well, I am familiar. Right. You see, but that's the thing. I'm familiar with Goblin Slayer and kind of like the controversy that was around that particular thing, anime. But the thing is, though, it all boils down to the context of the story. All the rules in the story is based on the context in the story. You cannot take anything that happens in, say, Goblin Slayer and apply it to the context of your reality. That's not where the rule is. The rule is in the context of the media that it's coming into. So if you have if you have some really, I guess, to put it mildly, very distasteful rules, they're still your rules in the context of that media. It's not about, well, that wouldn't happen in real life. Well, good thing I'm not writing about real life. I'm not writing about your life. I'm writing about this thing. So as long as whatever is happening in that world is in the context of the rules of that world, then that's the reality of that story.
And that's what fantasy is.
Yeah.
It is not here.
Right,
It is
exactly.
I mean,
Right.
that's it. So, okay.
Yeah. So also to go back to I lost my point. Never mind.
I just want to say to Marvy,
Hey, Marvy.
tell her, hey. Okay, let me just say this here with in Bloodwing Angel, we have a deity, we have a system, and we have good and evil We're not doing exactly the biblical Christianity.
Right.
We have a very similar, an offshoot of it,
Right.
but you still have a reality, the existence of, if you have infinite, infinite beings and what have you,
Right.
um, they will have seen the beginning and the end, but they're
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. In other
Right.
words, it's like if you here's best way to do it is this here. Let's take you got a long string here, okay, and this is reality. Let's just so I can get it up to the screen here. Okay, let's say here, okay, and here this is the beginning of time, and this is end of time. Well, the creative person who created all that is holding on to it
Yeah.
or can hold it. It's
Mm-hmm.
beyond all that.
Yeah.
So therefore, anybody that's coming from that realm
Yeah.
can be landing any place else. And the concept of just because something happened just then, like an angel, an innocent angel is
Mm-hmm.
tossed, and that happened one thing, and it could land, like 500 years later,
Right.
or what have you at that time, because where they land on that line is relative.
Right.
It's not like, oh, page 3, this happened. So
Right.
obviously, what was happening in page 4 is what happened. It's just
Right.
right
Yeah.
then.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Right.
are, but the idea is, as long as you can accept
Mm-hmm.
that those rules,
Yeah.
then you can enjoy the
Yeah.
story. But if you're fighting with the rules, why
Right.
are
Yeah.
you not making your own?
Right, exactly. But that's part of the whole marketing brainwash about turning creatives into product, that we just produce product.
Right.
And product is to be catered to. You're supposed to change your product to me. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. you know?
This is
Right.
not the customer's always right.
Right, exactly. That has nothing. It's like that has nothing to do with. And I remember my point now. Just because you're curious about something in a story as a reader doesn't mean it's important to the story for the author to explore. And you just and as a reader, sometimes you just have to take that it's like, just because it's like, but where are the toilets? Who cares? I'm not writing a story about toilets, so I'm not going to tell you about them. I'm not going to tell you how they function. um so just because you may find it interesting as a reader doesn't mean the author cares. So you're not going to get that. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean the story is lesser because of that. That's the thing. It's like they turn around. It's like, oh, well, you didn't write about this, so that makes you a bad writer. It's like, no, that makes you obviously not my audience.
Right. Yes.
You
And,
know,
and
and
it's kind of
yeah,
like it's kind of like an adventure
yeah,
story, an action story,
yeah,
where you're describing the hilt of the sword that is being,
right,
that's being driven into the heart of the
yeah,
hero. I mean, okay,
right, yeah. It's like,
what is the point of that?
right,
Is there
yeah.
something about that hilt that is really important?
Right, because like if you're just describing it for the sake of describing it, then you're just writing purple prose.
Yeah.
Because like that was also something else that kind of like was clarified for me when the whole thing about the show don't tell.
Right.
And the idea that what it is that if it's you don't have to, when you walk into a room, you're writing about somebody walking into a room and you say that there's a chair in the room, it's not necessary to describe the chair. We all know what a chair looks like. We all know what sunlight coming through a window looks like. We all know that. So we don't need to be shown, we don't need to be told what that is. It's, and then it's like, it's only if there's something unusual that because of your rules, your audience reading wouldn't know, that's when you describe it. That's when you show. So it's like, because to describe a standard chair, now it's like you're wasting everybody's time. I know what a chair looks like.
Right.
The thing is also, Another thing, yeah, because another thing that really freed my creative brain was watching The Witcher. This sounds really, really weird, but when I saw it, took me years to watch this show, and I finally sat down and watched it. And from first episode, it blew my mind because it was so obvious the author was kind of satirizing Tolkien rules.
Okay.
And he just did whatever he wanted in this in The Witcher. I mean, it was like it was so anachronistic, but because of the setting that was set up,
Mhm.
it didn't feel anachronistic. It wasn't anachronistic to the story of The Witcher. It was anachronistic if you're a history nerd, and when this was invented and that was invented or this or the other thing, but that's irrelevant in the
Yeah.
world of in The Witcher.
Mhm.
So that would blew my mind because I like you can do that. Because again, I was still at that mindset where it's like you had to explain everything. Everything had to make sense. Everything had to have some historic uh, precedent, in reality. When this show was like going, nah, if you want it in there, put it in there.
Right.
And that's the thing. So it's like, that's the thing. So in my comic Eagle Raven, I have a character that's addicted to Swedish fish and coffee. Even though Swedish fish and coffee obviously did not exist in 12th century Europe, but I'm not writing about 12th century Europe, And if I introduce Swedish fish and coffee into my universe, it's not for the reader to tell me that's wrong. It's for the reader to accept that that's now a rule in my world, that
Mhm.
Swedish fish and coffee exists
Right.
in my story.
Right. Well,
So
there's a difference. When you're talking about all this, trying to build up a world,
right, yeah.
you need to have a backstory
Yeah.
of your characters and
Yes,
knowing
yeah.
who they are
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
Now, there's a certain point where, you need to know how the
Mhm.
character, and that's
Yeah.
the backstory. That's
Mhm.
that's true. But you don't have to show all of that.
Right,
You
yeah.
just have to know it. The
Mhm.
same thing with the world that
Mhm.
you're in. As long as you can understand what the what the rules are of that
Mhm.
world,
Yeah.
fine. You don't have to say that the continents,
Right.
we don't have to have,
Yeah.
this continuously created, uh, so on
Right.
and so forth,
Uh-huh.
and this
Right.
begat this, and this,
Right, yeah.
it's, we're not doing genealogy,
Right, exactly. Exactly. We're
but
not
people
doing.
want that. They want to know
Well, you
that.
see, you see, that's the thing. I don't know if they really do, because it's like honestly, it's like there was a show that was on a couple of years ago called. Okay, I forgot the name of it. It just slipped my mind. But there was an argument online that I saw with one of people actually got into an online fight with the writer on this show, because he didn't explain how the economic system of the world worked. And he was trying to explain to them that it's like it wasn't important to the story. And it wasn't. I was watching this show and it wasn't. It's like explaining Mad Max. It's like look, oh, how did the world, who cares how the world got that way? This is the story now, And people were literally arguing with him that it's like that he was a bad writer because he didn't explain this. And it's like, honestly, anybody, it like I said, it's the toilet thing. Anybody who would allow themselves to be completely distracted by the sewer systems of a medieval city, or of a post apocalyptic city or wherever, it's like, maybe you should be doing something else.
Right.
Maybe you should be doing something else.
I would say this here. I would say, it's basically pick the the period of time
Yeah.
that you can relate to,
Right.
and that's what the sewer system is.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, I mean, like, look at the Romans. They're a
Yeah.
lot better than what the London than Britons were.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they
Exactly.
had a much better thing. So it's like it was a sophisticated
Yeah.
toilet. There
Yeah.
weren't any
Yeah.
stalls, but
Right.
first come, first serve.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It was stadium seating for true.
Right. And but this is the thing too. It's like, um, the what happened is that, like, the whole thing about the sewer systems and whatnot, that actually started off as a creative exercise. Like, if you wanted to build a more realistic
Right.
city or
Right.
something, think about the sewer system.
Right.
And it's like, okay, and I'll be like, all right, I thought about it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's irrelevant to my story. It's like, but the thing is, like, people are taking these exercises and turning them into rules. And for some reason, they're getting bugs up their asses about this. That's like, oh, you're not following the rules. And it's like, those are not my rules. So I'm not going to follow them. It's like, it's just like, I think, like, Stephen King had said that kill all your adverbs, like,
Yeah.
never use adverbs, and I go, no, screw that. I'm using all the adverbs.
Right.
I'm using every word that ends in ly. You do not. Just because you're Stephen King doesn't mean you tell me what to do. It's like, it's like, and I don't understand. Yeah, so, and I think that has to do with the fact that they think that, oh, well, I asked for my hamburger this way. And I go, no, one, you didn't ask for a hamburger. You asked for a taste of my meal.
Right.
That I'm making.
Right.
So you're gonna eat the meal that I'm making for you.
Right.
Or you can go someplace else.
Right. And people just,
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten to the point where
Yeah.
and this is part of I think you were alluding to this before, is that people can make their choices as how the story is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, okay, I want the story to go this way. And so therefore, you do have those books
Right.
where
Yeah.
they can make a choice. It's a game.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a game and being entertained
Yeah.
by somebody who's telling you the story. It's like, here you are, a verbal storyteller
Yeah.
is saying, this is what I'm going to present to you. You either like it or you don't. But
Yeah.
you know what? Here's the lesson I'm going to tell
Right.
you.
Yes.
Here's the element. I mean,
Right.
we have so much stuff that doesn't have anything more than a superficial
Yeah.
layer to it, that nobody has to dig deep to
Yeah.
find the meaning to it.
Yeah.
So-
And there comes a point where they actually resent. They actually resent that if you write a story that makes them dig, they hate you for it. That it's like that. Your story is making me work.
Uh-huh.
And it's like I said, it's very strange online right now. Although I just see this mostly on Twitter. Enter at your own risk. Where it's like people just want everything spoon fed to them exactly the way they want it. But the problem is that they all want this gray paste. It doesn't make them do anything. It doesn't make them think. It doesn't make them feel. They just want to feel it go down their throat, and they just want to be satisfied by that. And it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this, in a backstage, where it's like, that's the price we pay when we decide we are going to write the stories we want to see, as opposed to what these smooth brains want.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's basic pablum. They want pablum. They want it easy digestible.
Yeah.
Because that fills a hole.
Right.
Okay. You are when you are challenged. Almost mythologies challenge you because you have to say, what is this really all about? What is the thing that's going on about Jason and the Golden Fleece, or what's all of these various elements that you have to that they're saying in it. And that's where the literalism I will go back. I will, create all kinds of yelling and screaming right now. Is okay. Took the book of Job
Mm-hmm.
basically and used that as a reference
Right. Mm-hmm.
for my book, for my series for Bloodwing. But the thing about it is that the Bible is not a literal thing.
Right.
And so, therefore, I will get flamed for this. But so what? I'm Jesuit trained. I'm tougher than you are when it comes down to. I had 8 years of Jesuit training, and the whole idea is you have to be able to defend
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
on this here. If you
Mm-hmm.
have an intellectual
Right.
curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
then you will survive. If you
Right.
have no intellectual curiosity, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to survive the
Right.
next millennium.
Yeah.
You
And
just
that's the
you
yeah.
into the next 10 years or what have you.
And that's the funny thing is that ironically that for people who want so much reality and oh it's not like that and all that, they're the people least likely to to kind of like defend themselves, to defend their ideas as to why they want this. It's like I'm creating this fantasy world, and honestly, I don't feel the need to defend any of my work.
Mhm.
It's like I'm of the who's going? Which alarm is going off? Here we go. Oh, all my alarms are going off. Hold on.
Uh-oh, uh-oh,
no, no,
uh-oh,
no, no,
uh-oh.
no, no. Okay, we got it.
Okay.
Um, I created this. I create my fantasy world, and I don't feel the need to defend it at all from anybody
Mhm.
because it's like because the way I look at it is that you came to me. I didn't call you.
Right.
So it's like you either accept the stories as I'm putting them out
Mhm.
or go find somebody who's doing stories that you want to read,
Mhm.
but you don't come to me and ask me to defend my own work. I don't feel the need to defend it at all. That's the thing. It's like if I'm writing something a certain way is because that's how I'm writing it, not because I'm misled or I'm mistaken or something. I mean it's like I'm taking the whole so I did this whole thing a while ago where I got mad at Disney for what they were doing with trying to trademark
Loki.
Loki.
Yeah, like
So
something
right,
that is just
right,
public. Just
right.
it's just trade
And I
part.
had made right, and I had made a goof challenge saying that everybody should make their own Loki so that we can go against Disney Spartacus style. So that's what I did. I created my own Loki. And what I'm doing is that I'm taking the mythology of Loki and I'm making my own version of it. So
Right,
I'm not even accurate to the actual mythology because
right,
in the end, it's like it's mythology. We should be able to play with it how we want.
right.
So I have my version of Loki, but it's like nobody better come at me and say, "Oh, that doesn't really happen." It's like, "Holy shit, dude, I made this up." I made this up. You don't argue with me about what I made up.
And the thing about it, once again, we go back to it. It is a fantasy.
Yeah.
It is
Mm-hmm.
not a reality. You are
Right.
not being historically accurate,
Right.
and people can't even accept
Yeah.
historical accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Really, they're looking at this. They're looking at this. Oh, is this historically accurate? Did you just hear the words that came out of the hole in your face? It's like, how do you look at this and ask me, in all seriousness, if it's historically accurate? What are you looking for?
at what point did Fox and Hounds, start talking?
Right,
Did,
exactly.
yeah, I, we,
Yeah,
yeah, but again, we're talking about an expectation
yeah,
that that they seem to want to have everything worked out,
yeah,
and a lot of times that's what happens when people work so hard to
yeah,
create, right, that they never get around
yeah.
to actually doing anything
Right, yeah.
with the world that they're creating.
I've seen too many people do that they just drown themselves in world building
Mhm.
and they never put out one book, one issue. They never or they put out one issue and then they're redoing that one issue 5 times.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, tell your story. It's like, look, the people who are going to nitpick you about the toilets are not your audience.
Right.
I mean, for real. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, also, and I really do think that this attitude also comes down to what I'm seeing as, like, kind of like the destruction of the concept of villains and heroes,
Mm.
where people are so wrapped up in reality because they want the fantasy to be dragged down to their level.
Right.
They don't want anything that elevates them,
Mm-hmm.
either for good or for bad. They
Right.
don't want anything that makes them, look to their higher angels or some,
Right.
or confront their higher demons.
Yeah.
They just want, well, I'm not like that, so this has to be at my level. And the thing is, though, I don't watch fantasy. I don't enjoy fantasy. I don't enjoy these types of things to see people who are exactly like me. I'm already me. I want to see something greater. I want to see a hero. I want to see a villain.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see incredible feats. I want to see, vistas, and it's like, I want to see a world that I'm not in right now.
Right.
And I think that people are getting to a point where they're bothered by that. They don't want to use their imaginations. They don't want to imagine just anything greater than wherever they're at right now. So they want to make it your problem as a creator. They want to tear down the fantastical that we're creating,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to aspire to anything. I mean, it sounds really weird, but I really kind of think that has a lot to do with it, because it's like, when people just want their media spoon fed to them, like, they don't want to use their imaginations, and that bothers me.
Well, I don't know if it's imaginative, but rather it's curiosity.
They don't even have that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
being
yeah.
curious about
Right.
what's going to happen to, why would these people be
Right.
this way, and you can
Right.
see the motivations
Yeah.
will get into that
Yeah.
world, and so you have that,
Mm-hmm.
but with a fantasy element, once again, um, you know geez,
Yeah.
with having wings that retract into your body,
Right.
like they're a oh, what is it? They're tattoos,
Right.
which is what I do with Michael.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They got leg tattoos and back tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
The wings come out that way when the time is. But once again, that's a fan. What
Right.
what is it? Oh, okay. Well, how do you work?
Right.
How did you work that out? Well,
Right.
you know what? It's
Does.
magic.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing too that I keep putting in my book. It's magic.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's all I say. The magic did what it did. And it's like, and you just either accept it or you don't. I'm not going to explain the physics of magic. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. If you have, I mean, there's going to be rules, but really, it's like, I'm not going to sit here and give like a magic 101 just so that somebody thinks that. I mean, it's
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah.
Listen, I have this. You have to. Sometimes you have to think these things
Yeah.
through. Even
Yeah.
there's a certain logic, as I said, with
Right,
about
yeah.
fantasy and whatnot. Well, for me, the logic is that it has a certain kind of, because it's semi-immortal. And
Yeah.
it's semi,
Mhm.
it's a semi-mortal and
Right.
semi-immortal, and so
Right.
therefore it's a semi-ethereal being. Therefore, the wings contract because that's in the DNA.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind
I
of
mean,
like, that's
Right.
what it is. There's
Yeah.
there's a DNA
Yeah.
involved in there.
Right.
But also, I said, okay, well, how does this character work? If it's semi-mortal, then it's eating. Michael is eating, and so, Michael is constantly is hungry, is constantly eating,
Right.
because it takes a lot of effort to
Right.
throw those wings out there and to fly.
Uh-huh.
Also, Michael has the ability to have a flaming finger, a
Right.
fist of flame, and that metabolism
Right.
really burns up and
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
to constantly feed that, and so that's
right.
a running. So there's an element
Yeah,
there, but it's only because it's entertaining.
right,
That's minutia
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
entertaining, and
yeah.
you use it, and you show a weakness.
Yeah. You see, and that's the thing too. So it's like, yeah, that, but that's pretty much where the minutia comes in. It's like, because also the thing is that a lot of these people are conflict averse. They always
Oh,
seem to be conflict averse too. They don't want to see anybody suffering. They don't want to see anything bad happen. And it's like, no, that's where the story is. Conflict is where the story is. So
oh,
it's like, so
they better not
even
read my 1717 Club 1717
right,
story.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. So
there's
yeah,
a lot going on there.
so right, so it's like, so something as simple as using magic be affecting your metabolism. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting conflict. I mean, what's funny is that I have a variation of that. That's part of my rules too. It's like when there's a huge expenditure of magic. Oh, make sure she eats. She's gonna be really hungry. Soon. It's like, um, because that, yeah, that's a minutia that is entertaining. It adds something to the character, it adds something to the world building,
Right,
but it's not there for its own sake.
right.
it
Yeah.
it serves the purpose of the story. If it didn't serve a purpose to the story, you wouldn't have mentioned it.
Right. And that
Yeah,
is what you
yeah,
and that is what a good
mm-hmm.
solid story
Yeah,
is
yeah,
for all. And if there's going to be a rule,
yeah,
if it's some if there has to be a reason, a
yeah,
real reason that
yeah,
anything is
mm-hmm.
in there,
Yeah,
other than it has to drive the story in some way,
right, mm-hmm.
whether it be character development that
Yeah,
also gets to understand the motivation of a
yeah,
personality of character in that thing. You
mm-hmm.
know, you know. One of my biggest bugaboos, what I don't like, is just the ads. It's just the wisecracking that means nothing.
Right,
It's the
yeah,
dialogue that fills the air up because at one point it was cool because when Stan Lee was first doing it with when they were just doing with the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man in 1962,
uh-huh,
1963, that was brand new.
right,
It hadn't been done before, so
mm-hmm.
it was something. But
Right,
once again, it's,
yeah.
I mean, it's like, what, 70, 60 years old? It
Well,
is
it's
old.
like, every filmmaker likes to think they're quippy like Quentin Tarantino. And it's like, no, only Quentin Tarantino is Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Everyone else is a facsimile of him. And
Mhm.
even then, Quentin Tarantino was actually imitating Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
So, it's like, yeah, it's like people pick up the superficial,
Right.
right,
And, and,
without
and, and, and,
understanding what's really happening.
right. And quip only works once or twice.
Yeah.
Just, you can only use it in a story
Yeah.
every now and then to make a point. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like in Casablanca,
Yeah.
when Rick is saying, I came, he said, what's your business here? And, the Gestapo leader says, why are you here in Casablanca? He says, I came here for the waters. He says, there are no waters here. He says, I was misinformed.
Right, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, though, also, is like, he's also the only guy talking like that. It's not like
Yes.
all the characters are talking like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just kind of funny how, yeah, but it's I guess it's like a point that I wanted to make is that the people who call for realism usually just want another another way something is unrealistic. It's like kind of like they want the opposite. Like they don't want realism at all. They just want something that caters to whatever it is that they got going on in their head, and realism is just the only word they know how to use.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really that either, because it's like when you add in actual realism, they still get upset.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because like I said, they're usually the conflict averse, and they don't want to see anything bad happen. It's like, what life do you lead where nothing bad happens? That's
Well,
not realistic either.
I'll leave you with this: the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the story, Rose and whatnot. The queen doesn't fall. Well, it's written in Snow White. in the animated version, she falls off the cliff,
Yeah.
and actually dies.
Yeah,
Okay?
something about
Okay,
magic
but-
shoes, right? Snow White forces her to dance in magic
yeah,
shoes.
well, not magic shoes, in iron hot
Right,
white, and she dies at the
Right.
wedding.
Right.
Dancing at
Right.
the wedding
yeah.
to Snow White, and
Well,
that's how she dies.
Right, and the original Sleeping Beauty, she's raped by the prince, and she wakes up because she has twins.
Yeah.
That's the original story for Sleeping Beauty.
Okay, well, you know what?
It wasn't a kiss.
I think this is a great time to. Well,
So,
here's the thing: is that fantasy is a lot more. If you don't screw around with fantasy with it, and just let it go to where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, edginess. I mean, the Grimm's fairy tales. All those stories are the original edgy stories.
Yeah, they really are.
It only got saccharinized with Disney.
Yeah, it did.
Tolkien
Tolkien actually had beef with Disney because of that. Because he felt that Disney was destroying the culture of fairy tales. Mm-hmm. Because even back then, Tolkien understood that Disney's version has a wider, I guess, distribution, mental, cultural distribution that fairy tales can't keep up with.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a fun.
That was a fast hour.
Well, listen, you get 2 New Yorkers, and so this is what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen. Why don't we just we're going to wrap it up now, and why don't you tell us once again, how do they contact
sure.
you?
So everyone can, you can head, if you're interested in more of my work, you can head over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. You can find links to all of my galleries and social media sites, but I mostly post to Facebook. If you're interested in seeing like sketches and current works in progress and my dippy little doodles where I'm actually exploring fantastical elements and story, and working on stories that way. And also you can see me on YouTube at my channel where you can see videos of how I do my work, and I'm bringing back my weekly live streams, and that's at Daphne Lage, Lage art. And of course, don't forget to also follow the link to my Kickstarter for Eagle Raven issue 4. We still have, a lot of days to go, so there's plenty of time to pledge, but, soon, why not sooner rather than later, right?
and that's down, there's a link in the description down below, along with my Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. I'm in demand. We've got both books, and you're gonna, if you like fantasy, if you like heavy metal fantasy,
if you like anachronistic fantasies,
yes, I don't do the sugar coating aspect of things, but if it's anyway, it's animation, it's everything that I know how to do is in those stories, and it's an ongoing story. So check it out. I'm on here at my channel, John Celestri on YouTube, where you see a lot of a whole series, a library of information on animation, on comic book writing, on the basics of squash and stretch and all that kind of stuff, good stuff. And you can catch me on Facebook and Twitter at Celestri John. So it's been great, Daphne.
Thank you, sir. Always.
I know you got to go.
I have a stream to set up for next. Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to end this up, and you take care. And
you too.
See you all some other time.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.